Working in harmony with nature. We want to use natural products whenever we can, but enhance that. A lot of times we want those natural occurring organisms to work faster than they would naturally, so we do things with biostimulants and et cetera to speed them up. We want to use products that do no harm or minimal harm. Some of the products that we will recommend will be a little salty. Some of them, if overused, can do some harm, so we need to keep that matched to the buffering ability of your soil. If you've got a real low organic matter soil, we need to be more careful with some of those products versus if you don't. If you're under 2% organic matter, we would consider that a little bit of a fragile soil. We need to be obviously a lot more careful with a 2% versus if you're Stan Vanderkoy in Minnesota with a 7% out there. So yeah, you get away with a lot more evil stuff that way. So we need to be careful to match the product to the soil to make sure that we can keep the natural cycles in the soil working for us. So we want to minimize or manage those harsh products. We want to stimulate and build soil biological communities. A lot of products on the market today are single or dual strain. They have a couple bacteria, they have a couple fungi. We've realized for many years that we need a community. We need the bacteria, the fungi, the algae, the protozoas, the beneficial nematodes, all working together for us. So you've probably heard that term from some folks talking about the soil food web. That's very important. You need a community impact, a community effect. That's when we see the best success. We want to manage the base saturation. What's your ratio of your calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium? We're not going to suggest that there's an exact ratio, an exact number that's correct, but you need to be close. Depending on what problems you're dealing with, some of those adjustments may need to be made and can be made. We want to constantly work at maintaining or improving pore space, the tilth of the soil, that coffee ground structure at the surface. That will be hammered on all day. That is critical. We have to have adequate pore space. We have to have tilth. And we get that by managing the residue. If you've got a lot of wheat straw out there or corn stalks out there, there's an opportunity to use those resources to accomplish what we're talking about, make that soil healthier, make for a healthier crop. And ultimately manage carbon, whether that carbon's coming to you from residues or whether that carbon's coming as root exudates. For most of us, the largest quantity of carbon we're dealing with is actually coming from those root exudates. It's big, it's a big number. I won't read it to you. That was established many years ago, but we're all about trying to do things natural, do things healthy. You want to benefit your soil, your crop, your livestock, the community, and the people with the food. We value our value statement. We value the environment. The environment obviously is critical. It's very important. We need to be careful of our water and our soil resources. We don't want to be a polluter out there. We want to help that. We want to clean it up, perhaps, or maintain our farms at a very healthy, static level. We value quality, whether that be quality of your soil, quality of your crop, quality of life. Quality is an issue. We value health. Again, healthier soil, healthier livestock, healthier family, health of our communities. We value knowledge and wisdom. We want to acknowledge science and use sound science. And we also want to acknowledge the wisdom of those that came before us and have something to share from all of their experience. We value our reputation. We value profitability, profitability for you, the farm, as well as us. We all have to be sustainable so we can continue to do what we do. So how did we get here? And Dave's story as to how he created a problem and then worked his way back through it. So Dave Larson, our founder, believed that he caused many decades of soil degradation in less than 5 years. And as we get through the story, you'll understand what we're talking about. His goal was to balance the soil's cation exchange capacity immediately and provide all the needed nitrogen to maximize the yields. At this time, this would have been late 70s, early 80s, there were some growers growing 300 plus bushel corn. He thought if he could boost his yield significantly, that he could reduce his cost per bushel in order to purchase land and do what he needed to do and be more profitable. So his plan came to his opinion, and he was a very educated man, very smart man. If you know him, you know that's true. He decided he needed water. So often, many years, irrigation or water was a limiting factor. So he put an irrigation on his home farm. It was called a muscatine silt loam at that time. Today it's a muscatoon silt loam. But added water so he could keep the water perfect. He increased the potash. He'd been using 200 to 250 pounds of muriate of potash per acre per year, which was considerably more than was common in that time on those soils, but he boosted that. Went to the 400 to 600 range, put on plenty of nitrogen, as anhydrous ammonia, 250 to 350 pounds, and he did move the yields up. He went from 164 to 200. He always ran a variety plot there on his home farm. His top variety made 226. So he did move the yield up, but 80% of the corn was lodged. So he had standability problems, stalk problems. And stalk problems always relate to potassium, right? Maybe not. So his plan, after gathering some more expert recommendations, they said you must balance your CEC. You have to get that potassium correct. I believe they're shooting for like 8% or something like that. This is where they said he had to be in order to grow the 300 plus bushel corn. So after 14 years of 225 pounds and 2 years at 500 pounds, they said you need to put on 966 pounds of potash per acre. Need 300 pounds of diammonium phosphate, and then they made the decision to run 250 pounds of nitrogen as ammonia and put another 100 pounds of liquid nitrogen through the irrigator for his 350. So what's the results after doing that? In his variety plot, all the ears were 7 foot off the ground. So he had very, very rapid vegetative growth. Ear placement was very high. Did have massive roots, but they were only 2.5 inches deep. He said the soil felt like concrete, so the ground got very, very hard. Had massive aphid population. He told the story of aphids piling on his corn head and rolling down through the corn rolls. So he had lots of insect pressure. He was always big on tiling. He now had ponding over his tile lines. Had to harvest the corn at 30% moisture due to severe lodging. In that day, the technique was the moldboard plow. The same plow, same tractor, he had to run a full gear slower, pulling the plow through the fields. And we've lost the pictures, but I know years ago he had a picture showing on this muscatine silt loam, which is a very, very good soil, and it had good tilth. But by this time, when he was plowing, he had ribbons from one end of the farm to the other coming off the plow. So he really firmed the soil up and gotten hard. So by year 4, his yield was back down to 169 bushels per acre, was just 5 bushel better per acre than when he started this high yield program. So sometimes we hit forks in the road, sometimes we hit roadblocks. By this time, Dave was realizing that his goal wasn't going to be made. The plan wasn't right. He'd hit a roadblock. We're going to have to back up and start over and figure something out. So he traveled with a friend around the Midwest that next fall, talking to any experts that they could find that would talk about high yield corn. As I recall, they hit several universities, they hit John Deere, they hit a lot of folks on a quick tour through the Midwest. He's got a file that he talked to Herman Warsaw at Saybrook, Illinois, here in central Illinois. And in '75, Herman had 338 bushel corn. A few years after that, he was in the 380s. So Dave knew it could be done. He knew that there was somebody growing this corn over 300. His aha moment was meeting Dr. Dan Scow and then Dr. Kerry Reams. They were talking about, and Kerry Reams had come up with this biological theory of ionization. So it's very scientific, it's science, but it's a little different. If you've ever read any of that or familiar with it, he looks at the energy and the nutrients in a little different way. And for Dave, it was making sense that what he was doing wasn't right, because per the biological theory of ionization, he was taking some things the wrong way, using some of the wrong products. So it's science from a different perspective. He also learned the soil is supposed to be alive. At that time, Dave would have acknowledged he thought the soil was something to hold the plant up. It was a place to put fertilizer. And he learned that it was supposed to be alive, and that was kind of a life-changing moment for him, and then later on those that he would help and work with. So he learned about the energy principles and how to work with living soils. What came out of that was the 3 key principles of managing soil biologically that you'll hear throughout the day. Air and water space, or pore space, we must manage that. If you're putting products on like he did and destroying the tilth and making that soil structure go away and compact the soil, you're not going to get the job done. Things are going to change in a bad way. We need to manage the residue. Where he was running the moldboard plow, he was burying the residue, putting it deep enough that it wouldn't decompose aerobically. It was fermenting and rotting and then producing negative compounds that plant roots won't grow through, they'll grow away from. So that had to change. He switched to incorporating the residue into the aerobic zone. Nutrient application, switched away from anhydrous ammonia, went to less harsh nitrogen sources, the UANs, the urea, ammonium nitrates, and broke up some of the applications. Again, if you have to use something harsh, spoon feed it, break it up. Obviously, he moved away from using 1,000 pounds of graded potash breaker. So with these 3 principles, Dave saw his soils improve, the tilth came back. He changed his management. Rather than just look at pH to decide whether they had calcium, he was looking at the base saturation and studying whether that calcium was available, realizing now that the calcium is important to the health of the crop. It's not used just to adjust pH, change the tillage, change the form of nutrients. And he found that biologicals work. There were some biologicals on the market at this time. Most of them were recommended to be used in ounces per acre. He found that if he used them at gallons per acre, he was able to make some differences and improve the soil. So he became convinced that he was going to have biologicals that were cheap enough to put on enough to make a difference. So he restored the pore space in the soil. He brought the tilth back. The soil came back to life, got the tilth improved. By then, with the prompting of Jerry Carlson, with Pro Farmer, he encouraged Dave to tell his story on how he messed up the soil and brought it back, because there's other farmers that were looking to improve soils as well. So Dave started speaking at seminars, and AgriEnergy started to be something in the back of the mind. So he ended up being asked to advise the farmers and consultants, particularly around the Midwest. In 1990, AgriEnergy Resources was officially founded. So just kind of a timeline on how we've evolved. So in '82, Dave was trialing a lot of different biologicals and biostimulants. Some of those were on the farms that my family was farming, but we did see some differences. 1983, in the year of the drought, we did see some significant differences in strip trials where we were using some biology. So they made a difference. 1988, Dave started marketing fertility products. Had a couple folks that he met through the Pro Farmers seminars that encouraged him, help us find these products, help us put them together, we'll find the customers, let's make a difference out there in the communities. 1988, set up a soil lab in his basement of his home. 1990, started doing business as AgriEnergy Resources. 1990, decided he needed to make some bios so that he could have them cheap enough so that his customers could use enough to make a difference. Again, not ounces per acre, but get enough out there to change the soil. 1990, built the new soil lab in the building next to the office. And Gary was on site by then, is that right? What year did you come in?
89.
89, so Gary was there in 89 so he transitioned from Dave's basement, the soil lab, up to the soil lab that they set up in the shed. 1994, set up microbiology lab. I think I've got that date close, I'm not positive on that. 1996, just overnight, we lost Dave. Passed away February 96. Carolyn's brother, Paula Ailey, ultimately ended up buying the company, he and his family. And at that time, we didn't know how it would go by losing our founder and the person that ran the company and always put it, literally built it, put it together, but the business continued to survive and thrive. We carried on with what was going on with the dealers and the customers, and we got through it. It was a tough time, but we got through that. I'm calling it 2015, but the Ailey family in that time knew that long-term we needed to make a change. We believed that we needed to partner up with a larger company that would have more resources, particularly for research and development. So we were on the watch for a company that would blend in with us and that we could grow with. December of 2018, AgriEnergy Resources was sold to Douglas Products, and they consolidated us along with Growth Products out of New York and GPS Solutions out of Florida. So we had 3 companies put together that were all kind of similar with the approaches of what we were doing. By June of 2020, Douglas decided we need to form a buyer's group for our dealers and customer base. They were looking to sell to large national companies and thought it was going to be a conflict if they're trying to sell to national companies that were trying to sell to the same farmer base that we were. So they decided that this buyer's group would be put together. So December 2020, AgriEnergy Solutions, we were Resources, now we're Solutions, was formed with 4 of us in a rented office there in Princeton. So January 1, 2021, AgriEnergy Solutions was officially in business. By mid-2021, we realized that DPH was going to get out of the fertilizer business. They didn't want to be blending the products that our customers really depended on. So we started to search for other facilities that we could cooperate with somehow, buy, build, whatever. We're looking at anything and everything. So we looked at least 19 facilities over about an 18-month period. 2 or 3 had serious possibilities. My TGFP is thank God for patience. Real glad we didn't jump on some of them that wouldn't have been as good. But then in April 2023, with this guy over here, started talking with Dan Goodman at Early Bird Feed and Fertilizer down here at Goodfield, and things finally fell into place for us. So we're very thankful on how all that happened. All that happened there. So that's an overshot of the Early Bird facility. Dan's going to show us more and share with us kind of the direction we're headed. Again, thank you to all of you who came to come out and spend some time with us.